Hello and welcome to Upper Pen. My name is Dakota, and today I'm talking with Ness Brown about their debut novella, Scourge Between Stars from Tor Nightfire. Thanks, Ness, for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to appear on the show.
I loved this book so much. It is everything I wanted in sci-fi. So thank you.
No, thank you. I truly appreciate the kind words.
So tell people who might not have heard about the novella yet what it's about.
Absolutely. So, The Scourge Between Stars follows acting captain Jacqueline Albright, who is really putting out a bunch of figurative fires on the starship Calypso as it tries to make a return journey back to Earth from a failed exoplanet colony elsewhere in the galaxy. And everything on the ship, all virtually conditions are kind of going to hell. And in the midst of kind of all of these various dangers, the threat of mutiny, external kind of pot shots from an unknown force, among other things, different crew members start being picked off by some sort of unknown intruder. And we essentially follow Jacqueline and her team as they try to hunt the intruder down and salvage what they can.
So there is so much going on, and it is quite short. So you either really, really wanted to give Jack the hardest time ever, or
Yeah, I think, the reason why, or one of the reasons why I think the book feels so just packed to the brim with failure and danger is part of excuse me, it's because I essentially wrote the whole thing in summer of 2020, which is when that was kind of happening to the world. We had, of course, a global health crisis. We had protests against racial injustice. We had really intense political transitions happening. I think most people around the world did kind of feel like they were being beset on all sides. And I really wanted to kind of work through that feeling and metabolize it through Jacqueline. So I have to apologize to her. I did put her through the ringer.
it came out so great though, because each little thing is just like adding on, and all of it makes sense though. Like they're on this decrepit ship and it's just breaking.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
I've kind of mentioned this before, but I am an astrophysicist in training, and I definitely wanted to bring in a lot of my expertise to the story, what I could. And one of the things, although I myself am very much like a optimist, almost like a Star Trek optimist about what space exploration and travel might look like in the future. Unfortunately, I kind of know the reality about where we are technologically speaking, and I kind of wanted to write a story where, rather than sort of glossing over these, we're actually confronting them head on. The actual challenges of space travel.
I think it's done so well here too, because like part of the horror aspect of this novella is that they can't see what's going on outside. And that's just because of instrument failure, which can be taken out by anything, it feels like, in space.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're so right.
um, so how did you decide on, so they're leaving Proxima B, right? And heading back towards Earth. How did you make the decision to make them going in this direction instead of Earth to Proxima B?
hmm Part of it is I kind of wanted the story to start us off in a place of failure. So we're not kind of moving forward with hope and, a spirit of adventure, but we're kind of limping back, tail between our legs. We've already experienced kind of the letdown of what it means to try to make a home on another world because right now exoplanetary science is booming. We're finding these new planets around other stars all the time, and it's so exciting. But as best as we can tell with our modern instrumentation, there's really no other world out there like Earth, as nurturing, as lush, as well suited to our survival. So I really wanted to acknowledge in this story kind of what it means to have tried to abandon our ancestral home, and then kind of how it feels to realize the hubris of that.
There's a conversation probably halfway through where they're talking about going back to Earth and how it's probably not going to be what they need it to be still.
Right, yeah.
So it was just like, it feels like there's just sadness. And how do these people not just give up, you know?
That's such an excellent question. And I kind of find myself asking that more even about like where we are as humans today. And I've been thinking about, various points in human history where it kind of has seemed like everything is closing in. I'm just sort of wondering like what makes people continue to get up in the morning and, go to work or, take care of their kids kind of thing. And although, I admit to kind of filling the story with a lot of really depressing circumstances, I did also want to acknowledge human resilience and the kind of relentlessness of our spirit as a species. So I think that, or I hope that, comes through in certain parts of the story as well.
I definitely feel it in the relationships. So Jacqueline and Jolie, for instance, they're so like, it's so hopeful, that beginning of a relationship, and it's so
Yeah.
sweet. And I was like, just don't kill either of them, please.
Oh, I love them. They deserve happiness.
I know. I was so worried the whole time. And then right at the beginning, Jolie gets hurt. And I was like, don't, please don't.
Don't do it. No, no, no. I could never do that to Jolie. I definitely wanted that to be a bright spot in the story, especially because, one of my priorities, certainly with Scourge, but kind of in general, is contributing to Black female representation in these genres, and specifically queer Black female representation. And at least in this story, I was not aiming for a tragic queer story. So I wanted that to remain the glimmer.
Oh, perfect. Good, good. One of the things that creeped me out the most in this book was Watson. So Watson is an AI-ish robot. I don't know how to describe Watson.
I think that works. It's like a incredibly advanced android that I would say has like a super futuristic AI personality.
Yeah, and it's really awkward because Jacqueline's sister died like 6 months before the story starts, and the guy who designed Watson made him look like her sister.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, when I was, creating Watson and Watson's backstory, I have a lot of different horrors going on in Scourge. We have a bit of cosmic horror. We have like personal dynamics that are going, completely awry. Um, and I think, so many people around the world know all too well that there are, other kinds of horrors that you can experience as well. And I didn't want to, you know, I wanted to be faithful to that, I suppose. So I actually love that you think Watson is so creepy, because the creator of Watson, wanted the droid to be a certain kind of accessory almost. But throughout the story, Watson kind of gains its own agency and pushes back against that. And I love that Watson doesn't come off as kind of like a cute doll, but I think that that's exactly what the droid would have wanted.
Well, it's just, and like Jacqueline's response to Watson, and she seems like the only one who's responding to Watson in this way. And I'm like, what is wrong with all of you people? Please just see what you're doing.
Right. Yes.
And it's like, I like that their relationship develops over the course of the novella. It's just so weird and magical and also horrifying.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I I love Watson so much. And I did want to see Jacqueline and the droid go through an arc together because, it's just a small moment toward the end, but Jacqueline kind of spends this like crazy moment in the eye of the storm before the climax of the book, really thinking about, you know, what human survival like really means, and are humans the only ones that should get priority when it comes to survival, and what would it mean to even work alongside like non-humans for survival. It's like a quick blink and you miss it moment, but I think that's very much related to her evolving relationship with Watson, where she kind of begins to realize for the first time that you don't necessarily have to be human to, you know, really like contribute to a community, to this community.
Yeah, and it seemed like such a subtle allegory for like slavery, even like it just
Mm.
felt very like Watson is just this tool to so many people. And then there's this moment between Jacqueline and Watson where they're like, Watson is uncomfortable being unclothed, and Jacqueline takes them aside and puts something on them. And it's
Mhm.
just the sweetest thing ever. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So uh why is I don't know how to phrase this because I'm special. So there's this big fleet, right?
Yes.
And the Calypso is just one ship in this fleet, and because their instruments don't work as at all, really, they haven't been able to talk to any of the other ships. So, what is the purpose, I guess, of having so many other ships outside of the Calypso?
Mhm. Basically, when humans, and I should say a select kind of fraction of the population of humans, first took to the stars to try and colonize another world, it started out as this kind of big, demonstration of human capability, human might, and everyone is kind of moving forward as this like big, shiny, fleet through the stars. But the time spent on the exoplanet Proxima b really degraded not just the hopes and dreams of the colonists, but also, their systems, physically, their tech. And I think, as like a baseline, this idea that like, others are out there, but you can't talk to them, you can't hear them, you can't speak with them, like that is very anxiety inducing on its own. But I also, kind of wanted to continue in this vein where, just humans kind of reckoning with all of their best intentions falling apart around them. So it's like they should be there. You should be able to have this exchange and, take some comfort in communicating with what's left of like the human race, but you can't. So I definitely wanted that to be a little twist of the knife at the end.
It's so good because at first I did not think there was other ships around. I just thought it was this one, and then they get a transmission, and I was like, "What is happening?"
What's going on? Yeah.
Um, h- how did you write these transmissions? Because they don't give away too much of what's going to be happening, but they have to give some information, right? So how did you like? Because they're broken sentences.
Yeah. Yeah. I felt that that was a really tricky part of the story to write because, on one hand, I was so worried that it was hokey almost to have to, transcribe like the sound of a broken transmission. So I guess my line of attack going in was just what would it sound like to hear a warning from someone else that also has no real idea what's going on. So I guess like my priority with these broken messages was, you know, it's what you can like kind of get out before the figurative claws kind of close in around you.
It just adds another layer of horror to this. Like, you can't quite tell what they're trying to tell you, but you know
Yeah.
it's important.
Right. Ugh.
And
Ugh.
then, like, you make them go silent, which is awful, I would imagine. Finally hearing from somebody outside of your ship, and then you don't hear anything again. Although there's a lot going on inside the ship, so maybe they weren't worried.
A couple different things to pay attention to for sure.
Just a couple. um, One of the other things I wanted to talk about was Noah, which is he's the captain of the ship, and he's absent
Mhm.
for the story. Um,
Absolutely.
so can you tell me a little bit about Noah and what he's supposed to be?
Yeah, I feel that for Jacqueline, Noah, and we're riding along with Jacqueline, so Noah represents some sense of security, stability, reason, you know, anything to kind of be grounded on in this crazy circumstances that this 6,000 strong crew is experiencing. And so for Noah to kind of be gone for the vast majority of the story keeps Jacqueline really off-footed, and then we're right there experiencing that with her. And you know, I wanted to kind of strike a balance between a captain being absent, and what that would do to a crew, and what kind of confusion is going on among the people who should have answers but don't about this problem. Um, versus Jacqueline kind of being able to stew in this insecurity and fear that comes along with not having her rock there to kind of guide her. So that's kind of what Noah represents to Jacqueline and to us. It's kind of funny that to me that I wrote the relationship between Noah and Jacqueline the way that I did, because there's some really funky stuff that happens toward the end of the story between the two of them, to say the least. And the whole time that I'm writing this, I'm just kind of winging it because, my dad, I have a very similar relationship with my father where like, oh, I I adore my dad. We have such a strong relationship. So it was a really interesting exercise to write a story where things kind of hinge on like what happens when that kind of relationship, degrades.
Yeah. And it seems like so much pressure is put on, well, the three mates. So Jacqueline, Jolie, and
And
well,
Asher.
Asher. Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. So like they're trying to hold everything together before any of the creepy stuff starts happening.
Yes.
And it's not going well. There are problems with the factions, right? And the
Mhm.
I, population, I'm not sure.
Mhm.
But like, if you're on a ship in the middle of nowhere and it's broken,
Right.
how do you deal with people who are rioting essentially?
Yeah. I think this was a really interesting challenge to write as well, because I think for many people who, have lived most of their life planet side or on land, and then you kind of go on a very extended journey, so many things happen to you, like your psyche and excuse me. I feel that, like, for many people, the kind of crushing claustrophobia of that kind of journey can really get to them, and then it's very problematic. But we learn that the Calypso and its crew, excuse me, everybody on board the crew, on board the ship presently, has only ever known this. And so I thought, sorry,
You're okay.
excuse me one moment. And so I thought it would be interesting to have, the first three mates dealing with a mutiny where, they're so used to just everyone's compliance to the mission. Like, this is all we know. We only know life on board the ship. So it would have been kind of almost an extra struggle for them to figure out what happens when, people are no longer working toward this common goal anymore. So there's absolutely a bit of floundering, people trying to bring up playbooks. They have no experience with this.
It's it just feels so real too, because like of course there's going to be like an informational gap between the bridge crew and everybody else. And I just, people get mad when they're hungry and they
Yeah,
just, they riot.
yeah,
um
absolutely.
so like it feels right that they're all starving and just done.
Absolutely.
um are you writing more of this story?
I would love to. And I have had, certain people in my life really encourage me to. Um, I kind of like where we are in the world of the Calypso, where at the end, the crew receives an unexpected boon that kind of, helps them along their journey, but it's still sort of up to the crew to finish it out and see it to the end. So, I kind of like existing in this limbo of, you know, do they get it together? Do they do they make it that last few steps to the threshold? Um, but yeah, when I was kind of preparing this story for publication, working with the truly excellent team at Tor Nightfire, we decided that it was best to have the story be in the novella format, which I actually don't have a lot of experience with. So it was very interesting learning this art form and getting comfortable with the format. But a lot was necessarily cut from the story. And if I could, I would love to like wax on at incredible length about Proxima B and the conditions of the failed colony and you know why this very hostile, harsh world kind of gave birth to what it did. I would love to, come back and revisit something like that. That would be so much fun.
I love the little snippets that you do have in there. Like what theorizing why these creatures are the way they are. So it did work well, but I would read those deleted scenes. I'm just saying.
Oh, absolutely. Maybe one day, maybe one day.
Are you working on any other story or book or anything right now?
I definitely am. I do have another sci-fi horror in the works, which I'm pretty excited about because rather than taking place on a derelict spaceship this time, in this new story, we do actually get to make it planetside to another world in the galaxy. But because we are in the genre mashup that we are in, as you might expect, the team that we see in this new story don't exactly get a warm welcome from the flora native to the world. So I think for anyone who likes sci-fi horror with specifically kind of fungal horror, this might be very exciting.
I think you are right on the money right now. Everybody loves The Last of Us. So
I know, yes. Yeah. It's funny, I myself am not a huge fan of fungal horror because it's too real, it's too close for me. But I guess I love how much of a reaction that it clearly brings out of all of us. So yeah, I guess I'm on the fungal horror train myself right now.
I I think it's great, and I really hope you publish it and that it goes all the way. Like I need this.
Thank you so much. Fingers crossed.
Um, so you mentioned that you are an astrophysicist or you are training to be an astrophysicist. Are you getting your master's or your PhD?
Right now, I'm in a really excellent master's program at the CUNY Graduate Center in New York City, and I'm actually in kind of the time frame right now to start prepping for PhD applications. So I'm kind of really in the middle of my academic journey, but one of the things that has very ironically prepared me both for this space horror career and also for an astrophysics career is after I got my undergraduate degree in astronomy, I was blessed to spend several years teaching. So I taught introductory astronomy and astrobiology, which I used a ton of in the Scourge Between Stars. So although I would say that probably my journey as an astrophysicist has been super unconventional, I think it's all kind of shaking out just right. So I'm really excited to see kind of what happens next after this degree.
So I think they work so well together, and I think a lot of scientists and people who are scientifically inclined make very good fiction. It just
Mm.
like you guys seem to know stuff for one,
I
which
hope.
is helpful. Um, but how do you find time to do both? Because you said you were writing in 2020, but also like you were either teaching or you were going to school, and that's got to be a crazy.
Hmm. Absolutely. One of the things that has been the hardest about being in this program is that I don't have time to read. I can't read for pleasure, I should specify. And my philosophy is that to improve myself and my craft, you have to read all the time. And I did that for most of my life, always had a book in my hand. So I feel really adrift right now. I want to be reading again. So yeah, I would say I'm very much still in this space of figuring out how to balance both of these.
I imagine it'll come easier once you're like in a position where you have a full-time job or like
Yeah.
you're no longer studying every
Yeah.
moment of every day.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh, I look forward to that day.
If anybody wants to find you on social media, do you have social media?
I do. I am Ness the novelist on both Twitter and Instagram. And I do have a website, ness-brown.com. So, I can't say I'm the most active of social media personalities, but I hope to post, fun stuff about both writing and astro on all my accounts.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I truly appreciate all of the questions and the time to chat. It's really fun.
And if anybody out there has not read The Scourge Between Stars, it is out. It is not super long. You can finish it in a day, and then you will be sad that you did, but you can. um, Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you so much.